The doctor stared at the screen. Then he called in another doctor, then another. Nobody said a word for a long time. Because buried deep inside this 80-year-old woman's brain, clearly visible on the CT scan, was something that should not have been there. A needle, 3 centimeters long, lodged in her left parietal lobe, surrounded by brain tissue that had grown around it for 8 decades. It had been inside her skull since the day she was born, and she had no idea. The woman, whose name has never been released, had come to a hospital in Sakhalin, one of the most remote regions of eastern Russia, for a routine scan. She was not in pain. She was not sick. She had lived a completely ordinary life, 8 decades of ordinary, with no symptoms, no complications, no sign that anything was wrong. And then a radiologist looked at her scan and saw a 3-centimeter piece of metal sitting inside her brain. The question was obvious. How did a needle get inside this woman's skull? The answer was worse than anyone expected. Doctors examined the position of the needle. They studied how it had entered the skull, and they reached a conclusion that was as horrifying as it was historically documented. The needle had been inserted through her fontanelle, the soft spot on top of a newborn baby's head where the skull has not yet fully formed. Someone had pushed a thin needle directly into her brain when she was only days old, her own parents. Before we go further, if you're finding this story as extraordinary as I do, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We find these incredible true stories every single day, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. To understand why parents would do this to their own child, you have to understand what was happening in the Soviet Union in 1943. The Second World War was at its peak. The Soviet army was fighting the largest land war in human history, and behind the front lines, the civilian population was starving. Food shortages were catastrophic. Entire regions had nothing. Families who already could not feed themselves faced an impossible reality. Another mouth to feed meant everyone might die. And in that desperation, some parents made a choice that is almost impossible to comprehend. They would take a thin sewing needle. They would wait until the baby was newborn, when the fontanelle was still soft and open. And they would push the needle through the soft spot directly into the brain. The fontanelle would close naturally within weeks, sealing over the needle and hiding all evidence. The baby would die, and no one would ever know. This was not a single isolated act of desperation. According to the Sakhalin Health Department, this practice was documented across multiple regions during the years of Soviet famine. It happened enough times that medical authorities recognized the pattern immediately when they saw this woman's scan. But in this case, something extraordinary happened. The needle did not kill her. It penetrated her left parietal lobe, a region of the brain responsible for processing sensory information and spatial awareness. By all medical logic, it should have caused catastrophic damage. It should have caused bleeding, infection, seizures, or death. It did none of those things. The baby survived, the fontanelle closed, the needle stayed exactly where it was. And the brain, with the extraordinary adaptability that scientists still do not fully understand, simply grew around it for 80 years. She went to school, she worked, she lived through the entire Cold War, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the birth of modern Russia. She experienced everything a normal life contains: joy, loss, aging, routine, with a needle sitting silently inside her brain the entire time. She never had seizures. She never had neurological problems. The Sakhalin Health Department confirmed that she had never even complained of headaches. 80 years, no symptoms, no sign, nothing. When doctors made the discovery, they faced a difficult decision. Do you remove a needle that has been embedded in brain tissue for 8 decades? A needle that the brain has completely grown around and adapted to? The answer was no. The risk of surgery, of disturbing tissue that had been stable for 80 years, was far greater than the risk of leaving it in place. The needle had done no harm in 8 decades. The safest option was to let it stay exactly where it was. And so an 80-year-old woman walked out of that hospital the same way she walked in, with a needle in her brain. The only difference was that now she knew it was there. Think about that for a moment. She was meant to die before she ever opened her eyes. Her own parents, driven to the edge by a famine they did not choose and a war they could not escape, tried to end her life before it began. And her brain simply refused. It grew around the thing that was supposed to kill her. It adapted, it compensated, it carried her through an entire lifetime without once revealing what was hidden inside. The human brain is the most complex structure in the known universe, and sometimes it does things that science cannot fully explain. This woman's brain took a death sentence and turned it into 80 years of life, and she never felt a thing. Drop a comment below. What would you do if doctors told you something had been inside your brain your entire life? Would you want it removed, or would you leave it alone? We cover the most mind-blowing true stories from around the world every single week. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because you will not want to miss what is coming next. See you in the next one.